Welcome everyone to Upgrade Your Self-Confidence. My name is Iona. I am a confidence coach and a counselor, and I specialize in self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-concept. So if you're not sure what these things are, self-esteem is how we feel about ourselves. Self-concept is what we think of ourselves, and our self-confidence really is how we show up in the world and the energy that we do things with, the energy how we take action with. So tonight we're going to talk all about the inner child. And the inner child is one of my main teaching opportunities and points. It's one of the first things that I focus on or I specialize with, first start working together. And in these classes, in the year that we've been doing them, we have done a lot of inner child work. And it's so important because many of the things that have happened to us in life that have created our low self-confidence, low self-esteem, low self-concept actually started and happened in childhood. And when we are triggered or struggling, it's the child's part of us. You will see in the world people acting immaturely, people acting their emotional age. And this is why. We tend to get stuck, or I don't want to use the word stuck, stifled maybe, or locked in our emotional age when we had something difficult happen to us. Many people, many of us, especially women, are way better at masking it, right? We're so much better at masking our emotional age and acting up our age. I'm fascinated by emotions because of energy in motion, emotion, right? And in order for us to move forward as a society in a healthy way, I believe getting in touch with our feelings, right? All that touchy-feely stuff is extremely important, but we have to do it in a way that is actually beneficial, right? It's actually mature and beneficial. And one of the first things that I always go to with clients and when I'm thinking about the world as a whole is the inner child. So for those of you who are in the Facebook group, you might have seen the post that I put up. Did I send it an email as well? I think I just put it in a Facebook post that the inner child comes into the world, or the child, I should say, when we're born, we come into the world effortlessly confident, joyful, bold, excited, optimistic, free, happy, loving, enthusiastic, compassionate, vulnerable, and energetic. Things happen to us. We experience things. We're projected onto by others for these aspects of us to start to get reduced and disappear, and we reject them. I would love to know right now, in this moment, how you feel when I ask you about self-confidence. Where in life would you like to experience more confidence? And if you've been coming to this class a while, then you could just say this. You could say the same thing that you did last time, or you could have maybe a different. It can change. Personally, where I've wanted to experience more confidence in life was with putting myself out there and being seen. But actually, it's changed in this past week. And I feel now that I actually want to feel more confident in relaxing and taking time out, because it turns out that I'm really bad at doing that. Or it's not my strong point. I'm not bad at it, but it's not my strongest point. It's not my strongest because I end up doing too much and burning out and getting not well, getting sick, which was me last week. So Raquel says relationships, self, and my art. Amazing, love it. Ashley says general. Yeah, absolutely. You can go general as well. Confidence, like if we're experiencing low confidence, one aspect of our lives, then there's probably going to be repetition. It's probably going to pop up in other places in our lives. So yeah, I'd love to know if you haven't popped it in the chat or if you're working on it. where in life you would like to experience more self-confidence, if there's one aspect, or maybe a couple of aspects. Liz says relationships and showing up authentically. Yep, absolutely. So when we're little, we are generally confident. When we're interacting with others, we're confident. When we're being creative, we're confident. We're effortlessly confident. We come into this world effortlessly confident. And then we have experiences most of the time at a young age that cause us to reject that part of us, that confident part of us, and the world and people and expressing ourselves and relationships become unsafe. We are no longer safe to be ourselves. We're no longer safe to be confident in relationships. We're no longer safe to be confident in our art or in general or showing up in the world, because it's no longer safe to do so. Because if we do, then something bad might happen. We may experience physical, emotional, mental pain. So therefore we just don't. We stop putting ourselves out there. We stop asking for more. We stop expressing our boundaries. We stop expressing ourselves. We stop being so creatively free. And we just kind of retreat into ourselves. And that becomes our emotional age, right? That becomes the age of which we are, how we feel. And that's not to make it sound like it's bad or it's wrong. It's what our brains know how to work. It's how our brains know what to do. Our brains are so powerful. Our system is so powerful that it has to keep us safe. It has to stop us from growing. It has to stop us because we can't. It's not safe for us to do so. I talk a lot about neural pathways and how the thoughts we think and the feelings that we feel are actually neural pathways that we have been practicing for such a long time, and they've connected, and that's why they're strong. So we may feel like it's not safe for us to put ourselves out there in relationships or say no or ask for what we want, because if we do, then we could get rejected. And we've been rejected in the past, and that hurt really bad. So the neural pathway that we used to have, where it was safe to put ourselves out there and ask for what we want, that has become weak and no longer used. With the newer pathway that we created, that was, it's not safe to do that, so we're going to do this other thing, we're going to reject ourselves, immediately becomes stronger because that's the safer one to do. So it's not just about thinking a new thought, right, or feeling a new feeling. And this is where I get like, not stressed, that's too strong a statement, but I get concerned by mindset work and things like that, of people saying, just think a new thought, just feel a new feeling. But when we've got such strong neural pathways, it's basically impossible. It's not impossible, but it feels like it is impossible for us to decide that we are now safe when we have evidence that it's not safe, because our nervous system, which is extremely powerful, working all the time, even when we're asleep, it's going to trigger when we're not safe, and it's going to start walking that neural pathway. It's not safe. It's not safe to put yourself out there. It's not safe to ask for what you want, because if you do, if you are, you get rejected, or you may get rejected. You may you may experience emotional, physical, mental pain. Bad things could happen, and we don't want to go there again. So we're just going to keep ourselves small. We're going to just retreat and hide, not ask for things. We're going to fawn and people please. We're going to make sure everyone else is okay before we are okay. XYZ. The inner child, or the child version of us, which then becomes the inner child as we grow up. That child us who experienced the difficult circumstance, right? So say, for example, we have an experience with a family member where they shame us at a young age for, it could be for anything, the way that we look, the way that we act, something we say. Then if it happens regularly enough, that becomes our default. The neural pathway becomes strong. What I do with my clients, repetition, is to identify where that came from and work towards deciding a new truth by feeling safe, by practicing safety, by working with the inner child. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to work with the inner child, and we're going to get them to, we're going to let them be. We're going to let them feel safe. They can feel however they want to feel, right? But as we grow up, we may experience difficult circumstances like physical neglect, emotional neglect, abandonment, shame, being projected onto by other people, having to adopt roles, which we talked about last week in the class, like perfectionism, people pleasing. And we have to reject ourselves, basically. We have to reject our authentically confident self because it's not safe to show up. We also feel like our worthiness as human beings, our inherent worthiness is tied, and our lovability is tied to achievements and doing, right? And if anyone has been shamed in life, which I feel like many of us probably have been shamed at some point in our lives, we become human doings. There's healthy shame and there's toxic shame. I'm talking about toxic shame. I'm talking about being shamed for what you look like, for who you are, your body size, your shape, your anything like that, like your religion, your ethnicity, your gender, your orientation. Any of these things, when we're children and we get shamed, we believe that we are inherently bad, wrong, and flawed. Even when a child is ignored, that child takes that extremely personally and says, well, it must be because there's something wrong with me, that this person doesn't want me. So when we are shame-based, I was absolutely shame-based, and I'm still working through it because it's such a strong neural pathway that I learned from a young age. We become human doings. And this is why I'm working on being more confident, feeling more confident in being as a human being and not a human doing. Because when we're shame-based, we feel like our worthiness and lovability is tied to what we do, what we can do for others, and passing the time or proving ourselves and achieving. We can't just be human beings, we have to be human doings. But the most amazing thing is, because you're here, right? You're here. So therefore your inner child knows, like at some level, your soul, your spirit yearns to be their confident, joyful, expressive, bold self again, right? Which is why you're here. And that's so freaking awesome. And like, just to commend you all for being here at this time is fantastic, because there's a part of you that knows that this isn't, this low confident self is not your truth. You know that your being is and will experience something different. Things that we do, right, because we become human doings instead of human beings, when our inner child gets rejected or abandoned or shamed or whatever they've experienced, we may even dilute or distract ourselves from the pain of rejecting ourselves, because it's painful. That inner child who just wants to express herself or himself or themselves and wants to be seen and loved and nurtured and honored and appreciated, and for being themselves, for being expressive, for saying no, for getting what they want, right? For being creative, for showing up authentically. When they're rejected, it hurts. But when we have to reject ourselves, it hurts so much. It hurts even more because we know that it's not right. We know that it's not our truth. And I always have to say that physical pain is not, it's not bad or wrong. It's just our guidance system showing us where we are going against our truth, our inherent truth. And going against our inherent truth by rejecting ourselves or abandoning ourselves is so freaking painful. So what do? We numb it. We numb it out. We numb it out with drugs, alcohol, sex, spending, watching TV, playing computer games, smoking, drinking, like working, eating comfort foods, taking sugar and sweets because our life's not lacking sweetness because we have to reject ourselves. So we have to eat the sugar, right? That's been a huge one for me in my life, for sure, using sugar as a substitute for sweetness coming from my soul. My inner child is a sweet, loving, soulful joy, and I had to reject that or abandon that part of myself because it wasn't safe for her to be out there. So using sugar as a way of like distracting and diffusing and diluting that pain and taking the sweetness from an external place, you know. How many of us, and please feel free to share in the chat if you know, if you recognize that pain of your inner child, who you know that you are that inherently, you feel like you are that confident, loving, expressive, bold person, human being, but they're in there somewhere. Right, they're in there somewhere, but you've got all this stuff on top. You've got all the stuff piled up, like the self-doubt and the not good enoughness and the unworthiness and the shame and the unlivability and all the things that other people have said to us and made us feel about ourselves, and what society says to us and makes us feel about ourselves, what the media tells us to feel about ourselves, all this stuff like piled up and up and up and up and up. Like it's like a heavy ton of weight weighing us down, feels so heavy. And I also really love to work with my clients on things like body image. Whatever size we are, we're all inherently beautiful and worthy, right? If you have a goal, right, like a body goal that you want to work towards, then that's awesome, as long as you're doing it for, to feel better, not because you want to prove yourself to anyone, or fit into societal norms. If you want to work towards a goal and you're doing it because you want to feel amazing and you want to see, what it could be like, or X, Y, and Z, I always say that body weight is emotional, mental, and physical, right? The mental, emotional, and physical body all work as one. So when we're feeling heavy, we're feeling heavy, and I always like to offer that as a perspective, with in a loving, kind way to anyone who is struggling with how they feel about themselves physically. When we start to lighten up emotionally and recover our authentic, confident self, we lighten up physically as well, in a soul way. It's amazing. So when we become aware of all these things, right, the roles, the parts of us that we've rejected, we can check in with our inner child. We have to check in with our inner child on a regular basis, especially if we're getting triggered, or if we're having difficult emotions, or we're struggling with something in life. We have to check in with the inner child, see where they are, how they're doing, what they're doing, and nurture, nourish, listen to, care for, respect, and basically essentially reparent. Because our parents were just doing the best they could do at the time, right, with what they had. But at the same time, many of us didn't get the emotional nurturance that we perhaps needed, because there was no education for it. People weren't getting taught how to do it. Especially in the UK, it's like stiff upper lip, right? Suck it up and get on with it. Probably the same everywhere else in the world, actually, but we tend to make a really good job of it here in Britain. It's like that British thing of like, just suck it up and get on with it, like the old World War II adage, you know? And I'm like, no, like that's just creating more trauma. It's creating more pile on, just adding more and more and more and more and more. Once we start to feel and address these things, and feeling rejected, feeling abandoned, feeling not good enough, feeling not seen, feeling unwanted, all of these things that we may have experienced as a child, we have to start reparenting ourselves. We have to take that inner child to one side and give them what we perhaps didn't get, which when we first start doing it feels shameful. Like it feels like we feel guilty, right? And guilt and shame are like two wings of the same bird. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I have done something bad. So when I first started doing the inner child work, I felt immense guilt and shame because I felt like I was shaming my parents because they didn't do a good enough job. And there's a word that I'm going to talk about further later on tonight, and that's good enough. Good enough parenting, good enough relationships, good enough work, good enough creativity. We have to feel good enough, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So when we start to reparent our inner child, which is what we're going to do tonight, doesn't mean that we regress back to being children again. When we come into contact with our inner child, we don't start acting like that child. We don't start acting childish or childlike or go back into our childhood selves. The opposite happens. Our emotional age increases. We become emotionally mature. We become emotionally able and understanding to hold the space for other people who are perhaps also experiencing difficult circumstances, right? Most people who lash out when someone is having a difficult experience, that is their inner child that is getting wounded or is wounded and feels triggered because they weren't allowed themselves to express their own emotions. So they are they are lashing out, they're expressing their trauma. That's most of the world. Most of the world was not allowed to express its emotions as a child. So therefore, when they see someone else expressing an emotion, either they think that there's something wrong with them and they have to fix it, or that they've done something wrong themselves personally, they take it personally, so they get defensive, or they just can't cope, so they shut down because it's too scary to observe someone else have an emotional experience. So all of these things have happened because we've completely denied our emotionality for a long time. Now it's our time to get back to it. So we don't regress to being children again. We actually grow into stronger adults who can experience effortless confidence, joy, optimism, excitement, freedom, happiness, creativity, better relationships, right? A more healthy relationship with your physical body. All of these things is possible and is true. And I have experienced it personally because I am my number one client, right? Self-confidence was something that I really struggled with my whole freaking life. And I am now coming to terms with the fact that I was raised by a bit of a narcissist. And I say bit, I'm using that word as like an understatement. And I was shamed from a very young age. My expressiveness was shamed. My gender was shamed. My body was, everything about me was shamed and made to feel not good enough and bad and flawed and wrong. So then I internalized that. the world was not a safe place for me. I felt inherently unsafe in the world, and my confidence was non-existent. I'm writing my book at the moment. I'm writing the Confidence Handbook. And in the book, I'm going to share the pictures. I've got, I don't want to say it's not hundreds, I've got tens, 20s, maybe 10 or 20 school report cards where my teachers all said the exact same thing every year. And this was, Iona doesn't have enough confidence. Iona needs to be more confident. Iona needs to speak up more in class. Iona has to be more confident. And every year I would like come home to the frustration of my parents who would tell me just to be more confident, and I would be so confused because I just didn't know how. It wasn't safe to put myself out there. It wasn't safe to do these things I wanted to do, to express myself. And since doing this work, so I managed to get by. I managed to get, I went to college and university. I didn't finish school. I got chucked out of high school. I went to college and uni, and I set up 2 successful businesses with 0 to no confidence. So, and then it wasn't until I got so burnt out and depressed on my previous businesses, and because I was a human doing, because I was so shame-based, that I thought, yeah, there's something here that I need to explore internally, emotionally. So I did. And then I realized, oh, it's the bloody confidence thing. And it's the shame, and it's all this stuff. And I built up a relationship with my inner child. And the difference in me now than like even a year ago is insane. I'm not going to get emotional. Okay, so vulnerability, right? Oh, thanks, Raquel. Like, it wasn't safe for me to be vulnerable at all, ever, because that was shameful, right? So when we realign with our inner child, I'm so glad, Liz, yay. When we realign with our inner child, we allow them to feel safe, right? We allow ourselves to be safe in the world. Bloody finally, right? About freaking time we feel safe in the world, because the world is an amazing place, right? It has its moments, as we all do, but it's time for us to feel safe. Liz says emotions were seen as a character flaw. Yep. Excuse me. Emotions were seen as a character flaw in my family of origin. Yeah, no, right? So isn't that fascinating? Isn't that absolutely bloody fascinating? And that's why I love this work so much. So if you were to show emotion, then you felt like you were shamed, right? And shame equals I am flawed. Guilt is I'm doing something that's not right, and shame is I am not right. Whereas actually, psychologically, scientifically, right, expressing an emotion, ventilating your feelings is moving the energy, right? Emotion, energy in motion, it has to move. Energy does not do well when it sits, right? Energy cannot just sit still. It needs to be moving. And emotions, they have to come out, right? They have to move. So when you're being emotional, you're doing a good thing, right? I was reading something today. I'm studying for another certification, and today I was reading about the parasympathetic nervous system, right? The parasympathetic nervous system is extremely powerful. It's the thing that runs pretty much our whole body. And when we cry, when we are emotional, sorry, video's gone blurred. When we are emotional, we are sending a massive signal to the parasympathetic nervous system that we're safe, that it's okay, that it's time to move on to the next thing, right? When we're not doing that, when we're holding in our emotions, we're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. All of our systems are shut down. Parasympathetic nervous system is shut down. Our immune system is shut down. Our reproductive system is shut down. Everything is shut down because we're in this like tight phase of either running away, fighting, being frozen, or being passive, like being a people pleaser and like denying our own truth for others. So when we're in that state, we're not healthy. We're not being healthy. So actually, the opposite is true, Liz. Not being emotional is, I don't want to use the word character flaw, but it's not healthy, right? Holding in our emotions is not healthy. There are healthy ways of expressing our emotions, and verbally ventilating, right, and crying is a hugely important way of us to heal our bodies and get better. Like, think about babies. Like so babies learn to cry when they come out of the womb, first of all, as an anger thing, because they're angry for being out of the, and this is like a healthy anger, right? That baby is healthy angry because because they're no longer in the womb. They're no longer in the safe space of the womb, and they're afraid, right? The fear turns into anger, which then turns into like expression. The mum comes along, or the family member comes along and scoops the baby up and nurses it, cuddles it, nurtures it, soothes it, right, back into a state of their parasympathetic nervous system back into a state of regulation. When we grow up, it's still the same thing, right? It never changes. Our parasympathetic nervous system has to express itself some way, right? So when we're feeling like we have to cry, it's for a reason, because our body some way does not feel like it's safe, and it feels like it has to express itself in order to shift into a new state, a safer state, if that makes sense. But when we get older, we learn to do it ourselves, because obviously we're too big to get picked up by. I mean, you could always like find a strong other human to come along and like scoop you up and give you a hug. But we learn to do that with our inner children. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick exercise. So I'm going to get you to plop your feet on the ground, or if you're lying down, that's totally fine. Close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in and out. We're just going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. I've got a bit blocked nose. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I'm going to ask you to place one hand, open up, or both hands in the center of your chest. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose, feel the air as it comes into your nostril. What does it feel like? Make a mental note. Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it prickly? How does it feel against the nostril? Make a mental note, check in and make a mental note. And as you breathe out through your mouth, what does that feel like? Check in and make a mental note. Is it warm? Is it cool? Can you feel it against your cheeks and your lips and your tongue? How does it feel? And then same with your hands and your chest. When you breathe in, can you feel your chest expanding? What does that feel like on your hands? What does your skin feel, your top or whatever you're wearing feel like against your hands? Feel your other hand underneath your hand. What does that feel like? What does your skin feel like? Is it soft? Is it dry? Is it warm? Is it cool? How does it feel? Check in and make a mental note. And what we're doing when we do this exercise is we're taking ourselves out of our critical thinking mind and into our physical body and our emotional body too, because we're checking in on how it feels. And feeling is emotional, even if it's a physical feeling. And I'm going to ask you to imagine that you've got some tree roots coming at the bottom of your feet. So you've got like a root system coming out of the bottom of your feet, and it's going into the ground beneath you. Send those roots down into the ground. And if you're like me and you're in quite a high building, then you can imagine those roots going into the walls and the floor and the ground, into the foundations, and plunging down into the ground as far as you like. You can send it down 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 100 meters, as far as you like to go. I like to imagine that the roots are going into the core of the planet, like plugging in to the plugging into the core of the planet. And then we're going to breathe the energy back up into our bodies through that root system. We're plugging into our main number one mother. And this is extremely powerful for when we're doing inner child work, especially if we have any mother wounding or anything on the maternal side that feels heavy or difficult or challenging. Plugging into our first mother, Mother Earth, is really helpful. And as you breathe in that energy, imagine it coming back up your tree root system and up into your feet, and then up from your feet into your ankles and your knees and your hips, and then up into your internal organs in your body. Breathing into your lungs, into your cells, into every cell of your being, and up into the top of your head. And then imagine as you're breathing it in, it's coming out the top of your head and going all around your body like a fountain. It's like clearing, washing your body with love and beauty and compassion and empathy and worthiness and lovability. Because I believe that you are inherently worthy and lovable because you exist on the planet, because you are here. And if there's anyone that can tell us that and make us feel like that, it's the planet herself. And I believe it's my belief system that she is a living being. If that's not your belief system, that's all good. But that's what I like to believe. I like to think that she's a living being and that she's got my back. So, because I'm here, right? I'm here existing on this planet. And that actually she's a freaking badass. Like, she's amazing right now. She's always been amazing, but especially right now with all this crazy crap that's happening on the planet right now. She's really like, she's a force. Not only is she extremely unconditionally loving, but she is so supportive of anyone and everything. So regardless of what mistakes we've made and the flaws that we think we have, she's still going to love us unconditionally, no matter what. And this is where I like to start when I'm doing the inner child work. Starting with this grounded, centered self. So just keep that image going for a little while longer. And when we tap into the area in life where we want to experience more confidence, whether that is relationships or work or general or being creative, expressing ourselves, when we think back to an age where that felt like it was first, the difficulties first appeared, because I'll bet there was a time in your life where you could have open conversations, or you could attempt to at least be seen and have a conversation with others or express yourself, or whatever area that it is. I bet there was a time in your life, like me personally, there was a time in my life where I could just be. I was probably like primary school age or younger, maybe, where I didn't have to be doing anything. I could just be, I could just sit and just be, stare into space and use my imagination. When in your life did you first experience the low confidence in the area of life where you want to experience more confidence? What age were you? If you can't think of an age, pick one. Pick the first age that pops into your head and feel free to share in the chat. Oh yes, nice, Ashley, 10. Okay, perfect. I'm going to pick 4, age 4. That's the first one that popped into my head, and I'm going to write that down on my page as well. So yeah, feel free to take notes if any of this stuff rings true or is, it's going to be beneficial for you. So when we do this work, we, as much as we can, we remain in this grounded place, this grounded, centered place, hooked in to Mother Earth. It's much easier for us to interact with our inner child, which we're going to do in a moment, from this place than it is from any other state. So I love to practice this exercise. I practice this grounding, centering exercise like most of the time, not all day, every day, obviously, but a couple of times a day. I just do it like, I've done it so often now that I can actually do it in seconds. And I find it extremely beneficial, especially, by the way, especially if I'm interacting with someone who's challenging. I come from this grounded, centered place, and I'm less of an a-hole. I can actually interact with them in a way that's like grounded and centered. So this age that we've picked, can you now see or imagine that this child comes in to your mind, your imagination? Can you see them in your imagination, in your mind's eye? Can you feel them? Can you see them? Whatever age they are. I can see my 4-year-old self. And again, if you're struggling to see this version of this part of you, this age of you, then use your imagination, right? Imagine that if you're not sure what you might have looked like, then pick something, your hair, what are you wearing, what are you doing? Are you playing with a toy? Are you outside playing with friends? What are you doing? Make a mental note of that. What do you look like? What do your hair look like? Is it long? Is it short? Is it tied back? What are you wearing? Are you wearing dungarees or overalls or a top or a skirt or a dress or leggings or trousers or jeans? Or are you wearing painty overalls or welly boots or trainers or what are they called? Jelly sandals. I love my jelly sandals. What are you wearing? Raquel, thank you. For me, it's high school. I remember my high school uniform. Okay, perfect. So, nice one. Okay, so once you have them, an image of them, we're going to approach them, right? We're going to approach them. And we're going to say hello. And we're going to notice their expressions and what they seem to be doing. This is the version of you that has experienced this, whatever it is that's made them feel low confidence. So how are they? You can ask them, how are you doing? Hello, how are you doing? How are you? They, if you've never done this before, may not recognize you, and that's okay. If you've done this before, they may recognize you and they may open up immediately and tell you how they are. And if they don't say anything, then that's okay, because it may not be safe for them to do so, and that's okay. So feel free to share in the chat what's going on, what interaction is happening right now. The more you practice this, the easier it is for you to come in and out whilst being there, like being able to interact with your daily life whilst also maintaining this like visual, this image in your mind. Raquel says, I'm feeling some apprehension with approaching her myself. Interesting. Even from that grounded, centered place, you're feeling apprehension. Amazing. Unresponsive and insecure. Okay, perfect, Ashley. Well done. So let's take another couple of nice deep breaths in and out. And we're going to see that human being in front of us, that child, adolescent, however old they are, in front of us. And we're not going to say anything. We're just going to be with them. I would even invite you to, if there's a place for you to sit next to them, just sit down with them and be in their presence for a moment. Just be with them. Raquel, I might have been rejecting her for some time. Wow, powerful stuff. Yep, self-rejection, 100%. It's powerful, right? We reject ourselves on so many levels, because it's easier for us to reject. It's not easier for us to reject ourselves. It feels easier for us to reject ourselves. All good, AC. Pop into the Facebook group to watch the recording. It feels like it's easier for us to reject ourselves, but actually it's really hurtful. It's really painful when we reject ourselves. But because we've been rejected by others often in the past, it feels like it's safer for us to reject ourselves, because us rejecting ourselves is going to be less painful than someone else rejecting us. We almost already know what it's going to be like, right? Okay, so if we're just being with that child version, or that version with just being with them, take a nice couple of deep breaths in and out. So we're just being with them for a moment. Once we have, or at any point we feel like we want to, we could introduce ourselves as I am you, right? My name is Iona. I am you. And I will be helping you. I'm here to help, right? You can introduce yourself and say, I'm here to help. If you need it, right? It's not compulsory, but just in case you need any help, I'm here. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Raquel says, interesting. I think she has anger that I no longer hold. Oh, wow. Okay, that is interesting. So you've almost like passed it on to her to hold. Is that what you mean? Okay. So if you've introduced yourself and asked them how they're doing, and you're still getting any unresponsiveness, then that's perfect. That's fine. That's amazing. Because it's not our job to, well, it's not our motivation, right? It's not our idea to go in there guns blazing and try and fix it, try and fix this inner child, try and fix this child, or take away whatever emotions or experience that they're having. It's our job to go in and listen and be there physically and emotionally. That's our role, that's our job, that's our priority and our prerogative, is to go in there and just be, because I'll bet that this, whatever it was that has happened for us to have a confidence thing, right, or lack of confidence, we needed to just be. We needed to express our emotions and be with that emotion, and something has happened for us to not experience that, and we've internalized it, and we've shamed ourselves and we've rejected ourselves. Raquel, no, I'm thinking of my relationship with my sister growing up is so different now. I've worked through a lot of more than that over the years. Oh, amazing. Okay, cool. Amazing. So this inner child part of you is holding that thing, even though you've worked through it yourself. Amazing. Okay, brilliant. So I would love for you to say to that child, and this is for everyone, to say to that human being, I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. I am here. I am also here. I'm here now. Excuse me. I'm glad you're here, and I'm here now. I am going to be by your side from now on. You don't need to be perfect to get my love and my attention and my acceptance. You're going to get it anyway. And this is a powerful one because many of us, this is like, what? No, surely not. Surely I have to do something in order to be acceptable, or I have to hide a part of myself. I have to not do something in order to be acceptable. This is a revelation. Us telling that child version of ourselves, our inner child, that we are acceptable, they are acceptable, they are lovable, and they are protected no matter what. They don't need to be perfect. Yeah, absolutely, Raquel. Totally. It is like, what the, like, is that, it's like we've never heard it before. We've rarely heard it, or we've heard it and we've not really believed it because it didn't feel like the truth, right? Because it came with conditions, which is, it means it's conditional, right? It's not the truth. So you don't need to be perfect to get my love, my protection, and my acceptance. That is a big one. Feel free to write that one down if you want. You don't need to be perfect to get my love, protection, and acceptance. Because if we can internalize that, then that goes for everyone, right? That this human being, the person who I'm best friends with, or the person who I'm dating, or my own child, does not have to be perfect to get my love and acceptance and protection, right? Because we're not perfect, but we believe that we have to be. Otherwise, we're going to get shamed or guilt tripped or punished or experience pain, abuse, whatever. So how about this one? How about telling them or saying to them, all of your feelings are okay with me. All of your feelings are okay with me. We're not going to shame any feelings. We're not going to shame any expression of any feelings. We're not going to say, cheer up, don't be sad. We're going to say, all of your feelings are okay here. They're okay with me. And again, that might be like, what? I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to be happy. I'm not allowed to be this or that or blah, blah, blah. All of your feelings are okay with me. All of your feelings of expressing your feelings are okay with me, right? Because we have to express, right? We have to ventilate somehow. But we've been shamed to. We've been shamed for expressing our feelings in the past. That child has been shamed for expressing their feelings in the past, which could be why they are where they are and why they're doing what they're doing, which could be why they're rejecting themselves, whatever is happening. So all of your feelings are okay with me. You can sometimes feel confused, ambivalent, and not know all the answers. Say that to them, or say it to your inner child. Tell your inner child, you can sometimes feel confused, ambivalent, and not know all the answers. Because adults do crazy things. Adults do crazy shit. And it's confusing. It's confusing for us. Sometimes people do things and we're like, whatever. We become ambivalent to it. And we don't have to know the answers to all the things. But if we've been brought up in an environment where we had to become the fixer, or we had to be a people pleaser, or we had to know the answers, and if we didn't know the answer, we get punished. Why is it not like that? Why are you not doing that? Then we feel like we can't be confused, we can't be ambivalent, and we have to know the answers. But now we can say to our inner child, you are allowed to feel confused. In fact, not only are you allowed to feel confused, no wonder you feel confused. No wonder you feel freaking confused. No wonder you feel ambivalent, because there's all of this confusing stuff happening and you're like, I can't take it, I'm just going to not. And no wonder you don't know the answers, because who would, right? I'm pretty sure the most trained psychologists in the universe, right, wouldn't even know the answers for many of the stuff that these people do, or how to cope, right, with many of the stuff that these people do. So it's okay. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel ambivalent, and it's okay not to know the answers. But you know what? I'm really proud of you. I am so freaking proud of you. You can swear as well if you feel like you want to add in a little sweary word to entertain your inner child, right? My inner child loves it when I swear. She giggles. It makes her laugh. She's like, hee 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 hee. It's like, because it's not about, it's about the energy, right? It's not about the words that we use. It's about the energy that we use it with, right? You could say the F word to somebody and it's you're saying it in such a way that's so harmful. You can say the F word to somebody in a way that is so playful and funny, right? So it's how you say it. Throw in some F's and some M's and some MFs and some B's and some S's, right? if you feel safe to do so, and if it, play with it, and if your inner child is not, then you know it's all good. But I'm so effing proud of you, because of what you've had to go through and what you've had to witness and experience. F that S. Because that's nonsense. It's not nonsense. It's the people who created all of this stuff, right? All of the rejection, all of the shaming, their nonsense has been projected onto us, and we are carrying that, and it feels so heavy. And you know what? I'm so proud of you. Okay. So once you've done that, once you've said those things, now you can take a step back, tell your inner child that you will see them very soon. You'll be back. Don't worry, I'm going to be back. Or, expect me to come back, because I'll be back. And then come back here. How are you feeling? How are you doing? And what did you experience? What did you witness during that time? If you've not done this before, or if this is new to you, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for your inner child to feel safe around you, right? Because perhaps they feel, especially in their low confidence state, they may feel very unsafe to be around human beings, especially new human beings. And to them, you are a new human being. Even though you're them, they don't know that yet, and they will. So we can do this exercise so much, especially when we are feeling triggered or feeling bad or sad or shamed or anything like that. We check in with the inner child, and it doesn't have to be as long drawn out as that, but we can just give the inner child some words of affirmation and then leave, right? Because all we need to do is just be there, right? Be there and support them. Yep, actually that's perfectly normal. Absolutely. Yeah, because there's no reason or need to speak, right? Even if they weren't really even listening, that's fine, because it's going to take time. It's going to take time and consistency for you to build up that relationship with them, for them to feel confident with you, right? For them to feel confident. This is what it's all about. The confidence is an inside job, and it has to start with the inner child, because the inner child experienced the rejection of their self, their true self, their true confident self. And it's our job to go back there and remedy it by giving them the support that they did not get at the time. What we're going to do now is we're going to do an exercise. Liz, I struggle with this. I usually visualize things easily, but not my inner child. Yeah. Could find a physical connection, only random head thoughts, which was me trying to force connection. Yep, totally. So this could be as well, Liz, it's not safe, right? It's not in any way. Do you feel like it's not safe to connect with your inner child? If so, why, right? So that's something to explore in a session or on your own in meditation and journaling. It's not safe for me to connect with my inner child, because if I do, then I might experience pain, and she might experience pain, and it might be painful. We might not get on, blah, blah, blah. There might be multiple reasons why it's not safe to connect with the inner child. There could be like a safety thing there. Or it could basically just be that there's the neural pathway is not strong, right? This is challenging for those of us who have a very linear right brain, where we feel like because it's in the past, it needs to be in the past, and we can't imagine it being in the now. But with practice, that gets easier. And consistency is useful. This next exercise you might find easier. So with your pen and paper, we're going to use safety. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. So that's something to explore then. It's not safe to connect to my inner child, because if I was to connect to my inner child, X, Y, and Z would happen. So that's an opportunity for you to tap in and see, and this is for a question for everyone as well. Anyone, if you're having challenges connecting to your inner child, it's not safe for me to tap in with my inner child, because if I do, then this might happen. And then it's a process of working backwards as to why that thing that you think might happen won't happen, because you're not an unsafe person. You're the most important person for that child, because it's you. You know them better than anyone else in the world, because it's you. It's not anyone else's job to do this work. It's our job. So the best person for the job is you. Because bad things happened in the past, it doesn't mean they're going to happen in the now or in the future. But at the same time, it can feel painful, and it can feel risky, and it can feel like it might do. So it's our job to go in there to the inner child and not make them feel safe, but help them feel safe, right? Because we can't make anyone do anything, right? But it's our jobs to go in there and help them feel safe. And the only way we can do that is by going in on a regular basis and being, right? Just being and offering words of affirmation. Being is more important than the words of affirmation, but the words of affirmation are important. The words of affirmation are less as important as the being, because how many times in our lives have we heard someone say someone say a truth, but not feeling like a truth? So the being is important, and the words of affirmation are important, but the being is very important, because we just want we just wanted that person or human, or we wanted the support to be there. We wanted the emotional care, the nurturing to be there. So we're going to take our pen and paper, and whatever hand, this is fun. This is a fun exercise. Whatever hand is your non-dominant hand, right? I'm right-handed, so I'm going to use my left hand. We're going to use our non-dominant hand to write our adult self, our now self, a letter or a note. So we'll make it really quick. A very quick note. Left hand if you're right-handed, right hand if you're left-handed. We're going to write, dear, and I've done this a few times now, so my left hand writing is a bit easier than it was. Dear, and then your name. And then you're going to write as if you're talking from your inner child. This is a really, really, really powerful exercise. You're going to talk to your now self as your inner child. And because you're using your non-dominant hand, you're using the opposite side of your brain to think, which is mental, which is so interesting, fascinating. But you're also, when you're using your non-dominant hand, you're actually accessing, opening up neural pathways that have not been used in a while. And because the writing it's because it's difficult to write, or it's more difficult to write than your right hand, than your dominant hand, it adds like a childlike struggle to it, which is really powerful when we're trying to tap into our inner child. So, dear, your name. And then, today I am feeling whatever emotion in your inner child, whatever emotion, first emotion that comes to your head, comes to your mind. Today I am feeling sad, alone, happy, excited, joyful. Today I am feeling, insert emotion. And then I want you to think about a question that you could ask your now self. And it could be something like, will you come visit me? Will you come sit with me? Will you come play with me? Can you come be with me? When are you coming to see me? Right? First statement, today I am feeling X. Second statement, question. When, where, why, about, and to our adult self, right? So I'm going to write, will you come visit me? And then love from, your name. That's what mine looks like. Dear Iona, today I'm feeling sad. Will you come visit me? Love from Iona. Yeah, absolutely. I bet I don't know, I mean, I think primary one handwriting's yeah, it's probably about the same. But though that's how does it feel doing this? At first it can feel weird. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But yeah, it's really odd. Yeah, this is interesting. I felt some tension in my physical body, but the words seemed to flow out. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's strange, right? Because we've never had this communication before. Can you feel your inner child a little bit stronger? I feel like this is a really good exercise to strengthen communication between the two. It also reminded me of how some kids say, reminded me of how some things kids say can sound weird coming from an adult. Lol, yeah. Yeah, totally, yeah. So we're not thinking about it too much. We're just using it as an exercise to strengthen the communication between our inner child and our adult self, our inner child self and our adult self. So once we've written down that letter, we're now going to go back to our dominant hand and we're going to reply. Handwriting looks like my younger sister. Amazing, I love it. Fantastic. So let's use our dominant hand then and write a reply to the inner child, right? So I'm going to write, Dear Iona, I am sorry that you're feeling sad. It's okay to feel sad. Helicopter's going. It's okay to feel sad. I will come visit you right now. And always remember to keep your appointments with your inner child, because when we don't, we're adding to our safety, our lack of safety, right? Or our trust. The first thing she said, though, was, I want to tell you you're always enough. She wants to be free to be let out. Amazing, absolutely. So are you going to tell her that on the letter? That she's free to go. So I'm coming to visit you right now. I'm going to tap in with my inner child. Hello. Give her a big hug. Make sure she's okay. Give her anything she needs, toy, blanket, chocolate, whatever she wants. And then give her another big hug. Bring her with me if I wanted to. So it's completely up to us how we interact with the inner child, as long as it's supportive and loving and compassionate, empathetic, non-shaming, non-judgmental. It's accepting. It's protecting. So, dear Iona, I'm sorry that you're feeling sad. It's okay to feel sad. I will come and visit you right now. Love from Iona. There. So now I have an interaction between my child self and my now self. And this is a really powerful exercise that you can do anytime you're feeling like you want a little bit of confidence, or you're struggling to communicate with your inner child. I just really love this exercise. I think it's really fun because it's playing, right? We're playing. Trying to hide my cup. So how's everyone getting on with that? How's everyone get on with the adult side of it, with like the reply? Yeah, totally. It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. More thinking, more writing. Love it. Yeah. So, like everything, the more we do, the more quality time we spend doing it, the more I feel we'll get out of it. And like everything as well, we don't necessarily see the benefits immediately. Like, it's about consistency and it's about showing up, right? The more we show up for that inner child, the more confident they get in us showing up, and the more likely they are to open up, and the more confident we are in our affirmations to them, and the more they believe the things that we're telling them, and the more confident we feel. My inner child told me she likes the hot cross buns I had this afternoon. I love hot cross buns too. Oh, nice. I forgot about hot cross buns. Yummy. Did you have them toasted? With jam on them, because that's how I like mine. Okay, so reparenting. Reparenting is the job, the name of the game, right? Reparenting our inner child. And there's many ways that we can reparent our inner child. We can reparent via exercises, right? Like this, the writing, like meditation, like tapping in and having a communication with our within our imagination. We can reparent by reading, right? By reading information on the inner child and confidence, and coming along to things like this, which would be a community, right? We can reparent by community. What do you usually do with papers afterwards? Sometimes I keep them, sometimes I don't. I keep them all. I mean, I've got like about 40 of these yellow pads, but sometimes I keep them, sometimes I'll go through them. When I'm doing a clear out every few months, I'll go through them, and if it feels important, I'll keep it. But sometimes I just throw it in the recycling, because I feel like that moment, or that whatever we were working on, we're complete, right? I feel like we're complete within it, so I no longer need to hold on to it, right? It's like baggage. It's like emotional baggage. When I'm feeling complete with something, it's much easier for me to release it, right? Like a relationship with someone who was never really very respectful, and didn't like my boundaries, and I've just, I'm like, right, okay, I feel complete with this relationship, because now I'm learning that it's safe for me to set boundaries, and it's safe for me to say no, and I'm worthy of setting boundaries, and I'm worthy of saying no, and having a more positive life experience. No longer available for that stuff, so I'm now complete with this relationship, or I'm complete with this friendship, so it's easier for me to let it go. So reparenting by books, reparenting by reading, reparenting by exercises, reparenting by community, right? Which is what we're doing here. Reparenting by committee, right? Reparenting by committee is also really powerful. And a committee is basically your chosen family, your chosen people, who, when you have a situation, when you're having a wobble, or you're feeling low confidence, you can then turn to and say, hey, I'm not feeling great. And then you're not going to get shamed. You're going to get validation. You're going to get acceptance. You're going to get whatever it is you need to feel better. Of course, as well, there's reparenting by counseling, therapy, and coaching, which is me, and millions of other human beings on the planet who are here to be of service and here to guide us, you, them through their inner child work, their inner work, and their wobbles and difficult circumstances. In order for us to move forward, we have to sometimes look back at what wasn't working. In order for us to drop the baggage, we have to become aware of the baggage, right? We have to become aware of what's not working out for us in order for us to make better decisions, in order for us to decide, right? Like with that inner child, like deciding that inner child is inherently worthy and lovable and good just because she is alive is a decision. We made the decision decades ago, probably, that we were not, that we were unlovable, that we were unworthy inherently, we were flawed and bad and wrong. We made that decision because we had to, because we didn't have a choice, because it wasn't safe for us to believe otherwise, or think otherwise, or know otherwise. So now we have the perfect opportunity, because your mind is not permanent, right? We can change our minds. And this work is so powerful because it helps us to change our minds and to have different perspectives of ourselves, of our circumstances and experiences. And it's huge. It's such powerful, amazing work. The more you do the work, the more benefits you see, and it's effortless. I mean, it's not effortless because you're putting in the effort to do the work, right? But in terms of the way that you show up, right, the confidence becomes more effortless. The boldness becomes more effortless. We don't think, we no longer think about it because we're not in that fight or flight or lack of safety place, right? And one last thing before we finish, I wanted just to mention the thing that I chatted about before, which was the good enoughness, right? Can you be a good enough parent to your inner child, right? Because we are not perfect, but we can be good enough. And I think that once we decide what is good enough and become it, that's really powerful. If you don't think that something's good enough, then what is good enough, right? If you, a huge wow moment for me was thinking that I was ungrateful growing up, and that my family members were the ones that were doing their best and being good enough. But actually, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they weren't what I needed. Sometimes they weren't the people that I needed. And actually, the things that they did kind of weren't good enough. Like, they kind of weren't very good. So I have to decide, well, what is good enough? Compassion is good enough. Being empathetic, being open to admitting fault, right? That's good. That's good enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. So what is good enough to us? Let's become good enough parents for our inner child. Let's be a good enough parent. And the mother energy is compassion and nurturing. The father energy is compassion and protection, right? So we can be both of those things, regardless of what our gender is. For our inner child, we can show up with compassion, being in the mother energy. We can show up with protection, being the father energy. We can stand up for our inner child. We can, if we are observing a flashback where that inner child, that child's version is being bullied or picked on, we can actually step up and say, hey, leave that kid alone, stand up for them, and empower ourselves and that inner child by doing that. So there we go. That is the inner child. How is everyone doing, and how did you enjoy tonight's class? Next one. Awesome. I am excuse me. I have just opened up my diary for single sessions for the next couple of weeks. So if I usually just offer blocks of sessions, but I had a couple of requests for blocks of single sessions. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat for those. Are 80 pounds GBP. It was great. I'm doing good. Yay! A few tough and also great. Thanks. Yes, absolutely. You're welcome. So that's the link for a single session. I usually only take blocks of 4 sessions because I believe that it helps my clients more for them overall when we have a longer period to work with one-on-one. I usually work with my clients for 3 months minimum, because again, we're not here for a one-off thing. Like, this is intense work, and it really works well when we're doing it consistently. And I believe that if you're just having a one-off session, then it's good, right? But it's not as benefiting as like a block of 4 sessions or 8 or 12. Also psychologically, I've noticed it helps. It's helped me in the past when I was going through this process, but also my clients. It really helped us to know when we have something in the diary, right? When I know that every Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, it's set time I can go and I can vent, right? I can emotionally ventilate and also get guidance, and get coaching and counseling or whatever it is that I need. So that's great. And if you want to book a block, you still can, but the single sessions I'm offering just for the next couple of weeks, because I got asked from a few people for single sessions. So that's the link there. And I will also post it in the Facebook group later on. Does anyone have any questions before we finish? Thank you so much for joining me as usual. You're all amazing. You're all total badasses. Thanks, Raquel. Yay, you're so welcome. So next week, we're going to do the inner critic. It's going to be an inner critic class and an outer critic class. There's the inner critic and the outer critic. Your homework for this week is just to consistently show up for your inner child, build that relationship, practice the letter to and from, and practice tapping in and seeing and meeting and being with your inner child. That's your homework for this week. And I hope you have a fantastic week. I'd love to see you next week for inner critic. And then after that, I'm going to reduce the classes down to 1 a month because I've got a very busy little while coming up. But yeah, have a fantastic weekend, everyone. The week before my final art university critique. Perfect. Oh, nice one. Yeah, perfect. I love it, Raquel. Okay, brilliant, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend. Lots of love. I'll see you soon. Bye.